Good evening, everybody. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. Anybody wishing to address the commission is asked to please complete a speaker card and deliver it to Ms. Vargas over here. Prior to the item being heard by the commission, please observe a 3-minute limit for communications. Once called, speak, please state your name and city of residence for the record. I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and if I could ask Commissioner Munoz to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you very much. Would you please all rise and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Vargas, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Munoz,
Here.
Chair Olson,
Present?
Vice Chair Bass.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll begin with the meeting minutes. Item 1, approval of the Parks and Recreation meeting minutes of May 14th, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bass. And do we have a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Munoz. Let's go ahead and take a vote. See if it works.
Still doesn't. Chair
Yes.
Olson, your vote, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Item passes. Consent calendar. Developer impact fee bond balance bond repayment for April of 2024. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
I second it.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and take a vote.
Chair Olson.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, communications from the public. Do we have any speaker cards or written comments from the public tonight?
No, Chair, no written comments or speaker cards.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 3, community service report, and welcome the report by Director Finch.
Thank you, Chair Olson. So as you know, we are moving into our busiest season of the year with summer just getting started. So we have a lot of exciting announcements to share. First, from our Recreation Services Division, we're going to be making an announcement about Parks Make Life Better Month during the month of July. We have some exciting news we want to share about that with a upcoming proclamation that we're going to be planning for the July 3rd council meeting. And then we're going to move on to updates about some of our exciting summer events, including our annual 4th of July celebration, our second year of the Summer Street Fair, and then our very first year of the exciting new Movies in the Park program, which we are really, really thrilled to be able to provide for the community. And then just a friendly reminder about our summer programs that we have listed in the Corona Connection newsletter. There's still time to sign up, so Mr. Lass is going to share some information about that. And then we will move over to our Facility Parks and Trails Division, where Mr. Cortez will provide some news and updates on some new shade structures that were installed at some of our parks recently, as well as a recap of some of our recent Corona Beautiful cleanup events and our guided hikes program, which is continuing to gain in popularity. And then lastly, give an update about some summer field renovations that we have planned to kick off right after 4th of July. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Last to get us started.
Thank you, Ms. Finch. It's so nice to see you all, especially here as we get ready to go into the busiest season for recreation services. We have so many great things happening, and I'm just honored to share that with you. So first of all, I do want to share that July is Parks Make Life Better Month. This recognizes the importance of access to local parks, recreation, trails, open space, and facilities. The City of Corona owns and manages 46 developed parks and open space areas that totals approximately 380 acres. In addition, we operate the recreation facilities like the Circle City Center, Historic Civic Center, and the Senior Center, where amazing activities and programming occur on a daily basis. This month, we celebrate these amazing spaces, the benefits they provide to our community, and the individuals who work behind the scenes to activate them in so many unique and meaningful ways. At our council meeting on July 3rd, our council will be issuing a proclamation recognizing July as Parks Make Life Better Month. I hope you can join us for that. All right, 4th of July, just a week away. Join us by kicking off your day for our big city with Small Town Charm on our Main Street USA Parade. That'll be starting at 9 a.m. You can line up along Main Street between Ontario and Grand. And actually have an update there. We went from 50 to 90 entries over the weekend, so it's going to be quite the robust show with all kinds of great representation from throughout our community. So show up and cheer them along. The fun will continue at Santana Park with music, food, and fireworks starting at 5 p.m. We have ample parking as well as preferred parking options. You can access that through Crossroads Parking, which is available at Ontario and Fullerton. So you have to drive around just a little bit there, but there'll be directional signage, and we have additional staff actually helping us this year with some of the wayfinding. We will then have performances by Corona's own Black Rock Candy returning for their 3rd year with us with classic rock favorites. And then we have a headline performance by Radio Rebels, who's going to be doing some upbeat 80s and a little bit of 90s there to get the party started before the fireworks. This year, we also have an increase in food vendors, so the lines will hopefully be a little bit shorter for all of you, but we have 20 food vendors, including all kinds of amazing options, kettle corn and churros, tacos. We even have some vegan options. There's going to be something there for every appetite and interest. So maybe you want to check them all out and maybe share a little bit, or maybe just want to keep a plate to yourself. That's okay too. And of course, the night will conclude with a dazzling fireworks show. We actually have a 20-minute show that will be starting at just around 9 p.m. So lighting up the sky there with all kinds of great colors. And of course, I have to remind you, this is a big day for the city of Corona. We anticipate up to or around 30,000 people joining us between the parade and the afternoon festivities. And don't forget to plan for your day. It's going to be hot. Stay hydrated. Wear some sunscreen. And most importantly, have fun. And it's a great holiday for us all. Then, as Donna mentioned, new for this year, so right off, hot on the heels of the 4th, we're going to be going into our new Movies in the Park program. So we have quite the undertaking. We are actually pushing beyond the circle and extending into the 4 corners of or quadrants of our community with movies that are going to be running for 5 weeks at 4 different parks. So we're going to have 4 film screenings each week with a rotating selection of films. So we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, Elemental, Wish, Trolls band together, and then Wonka taking us out there. So each night you can pull up. Movies will begin right around dusk. Enjoy some picnics, some time with your friends. Maybe the kids can run around in the grass a little bit, but it should be a lot of fun for everyone under the stars there. All right, and then back for its 2nd year is our Summer Street Fair, now with 5 nights, and that's going to be running Thursday, July 11th through August 8th, 6 to 9 p.m. on 6th Street, right in front of the historic Civic Center. This year's featured artists include No Duh, Kings of 88, which is like Elton John and all those piano rock bands, All the Vibes, which is Latin alt music. We have Redneck Rodeo with some country there, and then to round out, perennial favorite, Stone Soul. This year, our market area is also expanding with even more gourmet food trucks, artisan crafts, and locally sourced products. Kids will also have opportunities to get their wiggles out in our fun zone, featuring some bouncers as well as activities led by our staff. For adults 21 and over, the Corona Parks Foundation will host their beer and wine garden for your enjoyment. Each week, we'll actually be featuring a different local brewery on tap, so you can kind of sample them all each week you visit. So don't miss out. Our Summer Street Fair is epic, and please follow along. We have shortened URLs there, coronaca.gov/fair. And then last, as we get into the summer, kids have been out for a few weeks now, and if you're like me, you might have heard a few, I'm bored. So there is no reason to be bored in Corona. We have all kinds of great activities and programs and services being offered. So be sure to check out our Corona Connection. We feature all kinds of calendar dates and information for upcoming happenings. We have free and low-cost programs. We have volunteer opportunities. We have week-long summer camps, summer at your library, so much more. If you flip through the pages or just go online, I'm sure you can find something. Or just give us a call at our Circle City Center, and our staff would be happy to help provide some different options here in your hometown. With that said, that'll conclude recreation. I'll pass the mic over here to Mr. Cortez.
Thank you, Mr. Lass, and good evening, Commission. I do have a few updates for you guys that deal with the Facilities, Parks, and Trails Division. I'll jump right into it here. So we've had a very busy summer so far, and we are excited to share with you guys that we were partnered with our Public Works Department, and we've been installing some shade structures. You might have seen the really big ones up there, Mountain Gate and the ball fields. So those were just installed. We also put one over the playground, and that one's relatively large. We're at Santana Park right now, and next, our last one will be up at Cresta Verde Park. We haven't started that one yet, but we will be up there probably in about a month or so to get that one installed, and we're diligently working to get the one at Santana Park completed by the 4th of July event. We've also had a really busy Corona Beautiful events over the last about 6 weeks. So did one on a Thursday for some of our students that needed to finish up their hours for volunteer hours. So we held one after school on a Thursday up at the Circle City Center. We did some planting and some mulching and kind of cleaned up the facility there. We planted about 60 plants and put down a couple loads of a mulch. So that was fun, and we got some stuff done over there. After that, we did the library on a Saturday morning. That was really nice. We had a really large turnout. We also installed some plants over there, and we put down about 40 yards of mulch. So they really went to town there and got that area cleaned up for going into summer. So we were there on a Saturday, and this past Saturday, we were over on Oak Street. We just put in some trees. It was really warm, and the volunteers hung out and got it done. But we did get the trees put in, and they also put down quite a bit of mulch that afternoon in one of the parkways. So they were definitely earning their work that day. Next, we'd like to share with you about the Summerfield renovations. So we will begin Summerfield renovations beginning next week. So we will be fencing off all of our soccer fields and getting in there and doing some slit seeding, some aerating. We'll be putting down some slow release fertilizer, quite a bit of sand to get rid of all those undulations in the fields that get beat up during the season. So we'll be working on those and releasing them right around the end of August. They've got some picture days and stuff, so we're working on getting all those days squared away. The work that takes place on the baseball fields, because they still are in season, many of them with all-stars and finish-up games, we do all that work takes place during the day, and it doesn't impact their play. So we're not doing like heavy sod or heavy work on the baseball fields just because the play's different. So we're doing some aerating and fertilizing on those fields, but the soccer fields will be fully fenced and closed off so they can recover. Lastly, we had our guided hikes up at Tin Mine on May 18th. So another great turnout. Again, these guided hikes seem to fill up immediately. So maybe potentially looking at expanding that in the future, or maybe expanding the number of volunteers or the number of participants that we can take on the hikes. But they're definitely filling up, and we'll take a little break through summer, and then we'll be back in early fall, September 21st for our next one. And with that, that concludes our presentation, and we're all open for any questions or comments you guys have.
Thank you very much for that report. I'd like to welcome any questions or comments from my fellow commissioners. Start with you, Mr. Moody's.
Thanks, Chair Matt Olson. I get so excited to listen to Jason last talk about the Parks and Recreation Program. And it's people like all of you that make parks better. It's not just the park itself, it's the people who go to the parks and who are part of the park system. So every blade there is a person that I know. And so thank you for your time, for expressing your excitement about the parks. And I'm excited about the upcoming July 4th presentation. And at nighttime, it's always fun to just kind of lay back, sit back, and relax with your wife and kids, or just alone, and watch the fireworks display. It's amazing. And that's just, I love to be that dad who's there with my kids and grandkids now. So that's fun. Looking forward to seeing the movies in the park. I can recall back in the day when I was a lot younger, my son was in Webelos, Scouts, and 2 years in a row we went to the movies as a Saturday event and saw the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, part 1 and part 2. It was exciting. So when I see that nowadays, the kids really just don't know what it is to go back and see the movies when they were dressed in costume and playing all that. It was fun. Fun watching. The kids wouldn't sit with us. They were 3 rows ahead of us. Come on, Dad, sit back away from us. They were embarrassed by having their dads there, but we had fun watching them. And then looking forward to concerts in the park and the vendors. I'll be pouring a good glass of wine for those who want to buy wine, and for those who buy beer, wine's better. So it'll be fun. I pour a good glass of wine. But the concerts are fantastic, and starting with No Duh, I've seen them several times in other cities, other communities, and I never grow bored of their presentation. And they look exactly and sound exactly like the real thing, the real deal. Had a chance on Friday last week. I get half day Friday, so I drive around parks that I've done and see what I could do better next time. And so I go back and see what Moses has done with our shade structures, and he did a great job at Mountain Gate Park. And I just drove by the playground too, and the kids were all over that. Yeah, it's amazing. And the shade was part of that, yeah, because it was hotter than heck that day, but they were there in the shade having fun. So high five for that, Moses, and your team. Planting on June 22nd, I was there with Moses on Oak Avenue, and I saw it on Facebook. We got our hand slapped for saying Oak Street, saying it's Oak Avenue. I go, give me a break, Oak Avenue was good. Trees were fun. It's really hard planting trees when the holes are not dug for us, I'm lazy, so. But it was fun, though. But I met some good people. I was sharing with Commissioner Bass that we met a young lady, and she quit school at 7th grade. But by the time she went back to school to get her GED, she was a straight-A student. And she was really impressive. I met her through Councilman Jim Steiner, and I'll share that information with Ms. Bass here in a few minutes. But fantastic. You're just motivated by what people can do at such 18 years old, so I could be your grandpa. So, but amazing what you can learn and absorb from that type of person. And then soccer fields. Doing a great job on soccer fields. We're in football season with everything going on. And at lunchtime today, I was with another park in Orange County. We're doing some park renovation and soccer renovation on 4 fields, and it's a lot of work on that, I tell you. So when you get to those soccer fields and ball fields a playable level, I just see a great job for the kids and the adults that play. It's like 24/7. Yeah. But anyway, that's really about it. Thank you again for your time, and I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Munoz. Vice Chair Bass?
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. I wanted to say, Commissioner Munoz, that I love that story about the young lady you met, because I think it just goes to show from these types of events and activities, the types of people you can meet and the connections you can make. So that was really nice, and I look forward to meeting her. For the 4th of July celebration, I know we're just about a week away, so I want to just acknowledge the fact that I'm sure everyone is working super hard in the department, and something like to that scale and that magnitude wouldn't happen without all the people working behind the scenes. So I'm just going to say an early thank you, because I know it's going to be amazing, and I know everyone's working around the clock to bring that event to fruition. So you're doing a great job. Keep it up. And if that can be passed along to everyone in the department, just how much we appreciate that and bringing that event to life for the community. Quick note on the I'm really excited about the movies in the park, and just seeing how we're able to build programs year over year, or activities and events that go well. So that's really exciting. And then for the July is Parks Make Life Better month. Quick story, I was running errands today with my daughter, and we were driving down River Road, and she looks to the right out of the window, and she sees River Road Park, in which she immediately says, "Oh, can I go run around really quick?" So I was like, okay, we can't run around right now at this moment, but when we're done running a couple of errands, we'll circle back. So we did that. It was not a planned trip to the park, but it was really impromptu, and just going back to the idea that parks really do make life better. She was able to run around, get outside. Yes, it was hot. I found a tree to stand under. But just having that free time fun and being able to have that unstructured play, and just having a place where we could literally pull over on the side of the road and have that opportunity to give her that moment and that memory. I just really appreciate everyone's work that goes into that. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bass. Yeah, parks make life better every month of the year, really, and this is something that's been a passion of mine. They make life better. They make the city better. They're an extension of the city's brand appeal. They are the curb appeal, literally, of the city. So Absolutely, and I'm glad that you know we're starting to see the attention in this city that the parks deserve. You know, as the extension of that brand and the you know the foot forward for the city. Echo Vice Chair Bass's thanks to everyone for the 4th of July celebration, the work you put into it. It's always amazing. I know it's a treasure to our city and our neighboring cities and the region as a whole. So I'm really proud of what we do there. Question, it's pretty amazing that we added over 40 entries over the weekend. What is our historic average over the last few years for number of entries?
You know, we were actually pretty close to that last year. So we anywhere from 50, 75, higher, I mean, years past, it was maybe a little over 100, but this is a very healthy range for us. Also, with those entries too, like vehicles, you might have multiple vehicles within each entry too. So by sheer head count, this is going to be a pretty big parade for us this year.
Awesome. And a question on the parking. So we've got both regular and preferred parking. Are both of those accessed through the Crossroads lot?
That's correct. So if you take Ontario to Fullerton, take that into the kind of the back end of Crossroads there, we'll have some signage. We also have parking staff that'll be directing, and they kind of guide you through that. You get all the way up to Crossroads as close as you can to the event as that parking is available. If you want to be closer to the event and park in Santana Park proper, we will have paid parking opportunities that get you right up there in front. While you do get right up close, I have to also caution, we do hold that parking lot for 30 minutes, up to 30 minutes after the show is done, just because we have to get the pedestrians safely across the street before we open that back up. But whether you prefer, you know, the close parking or, you know, you're okay with some options there, you know, there's plenty of parking opportunities. We also have the Kaiser lot as well as Lee Pollard in the surrounding area. So no one should go away without an opportunity to join us for the event.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you take advantage of the preferred parking, just be willing to hang out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Enjoy the people watching. Movies in the park. Awesome. This is so cool. You know, kind of harkening back to my own nostalgia as a kid, that's like the exact stuff of my core memories, right? Just going out and running around the park in the evening at the sunset and doing something with the community. Super cool. I really hope that, you know, this resonates with the community as much as it resonates with me. I know that, you know, we'll definitely take advantage of at least a few of them. It's interesting these days, I see they're all rated PG, but that's just kind of like the trend in movies these days, right? 2 Disney movies are PG. Yeah, I guess it is the way it is these days. But that's awesome. I really, really look forward to partaking in this. And I hope the community responds to that. Shade structures, awesome. We can't get them up there fast enough, I know. It really does make a huge difference where there is shade. And I find myself these days, as the weather gets warmer, you know, where I would normally go to Sierra Bella, now I'm going to Service Club, just because, you know, with the trees and everything, the mature trees, it's just more shade. It just makes it easier to hang out. Corona Beautiful Projects. Thank you for like circling back and closing the loop on the level of participation. I think that that's something that I really appreciate. It's nice to know what we're going to do, but it's also really nice to hear on the back end how to work. You know, how successful was it? And we can kind of get a feel for how things are resonating in the community and helps us make, you know, more informed recommendations going forward. So that's really cool. Same with the guided hikes program. It's like killer to see that those things are just filling up. That's so cool. Question about that. How far up like Tin Mine do you go? Do you get to where there's still water? I mean, I know if you go real far, there's like a lot of poison oak up there. So how far do we go?
So we basically get to the mine. We cleared the trail ahead of time just because it had, from all the rains, it had really grown in and it was pretty narrow. And we didn't want to have too narrow a path with the rattlesnakes. So we did go up there and spend a couple hours clearing the trail before the hike, actually.
Nice.
So.
Very good. And the summer field renovations, we've been kind of at this for a few years now, and are we seeing the results that we had hoped to when we started putting, you know, the concerted effort into these renovations and upkeep?
Yeah, it's just that now it's kind of like on a cycle, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the season there, especially on soccer, just the types of play just vary so much. I mean, soccer, you run back and forth, you got the cleats, it really does tear up the turf. Whereas on baseball, you're not running as much. So, but again, then we're going on the infields and doing the work on the infield. So, but yeah, we're definitely seeing the payoff, and I think the leagues are appreciating it.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for all the hard work and the great report. And with that, we'll move on to item number 4, Senior Center Hourly Parking Amendment, with a report by Mrs. Cowden. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Awesome.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sadie Cowden, Recreation Supervisor, and I am here to discuss the implementation of a 2-hour parking limit for the Corona Senior Center. So our ask before you today is that you support staff's recommendation to amend the Senior Center parking restrictions to specify a 2-hour limit, and forward the recommendation to City Council for final consideration. The slide before you is an aerial view of the Senior Center located at 10th and Bell. North of that is the parking lot off of 9th Street, and just north of that is the Corona Regional Hospital. So some background and history. The Corona Senior Center operates Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Fridays, 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. We have an average of 138 participants coming through the doors. Many of them come, for yoga and stay for our lunch program. They'll stay for a couple hours and really enjoy the time that they have there. Due to the smaller nature of the facility and the unique nature of the facility, because it's a converted fire station, comes with a really cool history, but unfortunately not necessarily a lot of parking spaces. So currently we have 39 parking spaces available for the building. There is additional parking on 9th Street, 10th Street, and Bell, but that's limited because there are surrounding businesses and apartment buildings. So what are our challenges? It's a good challenge because we have an increase in participation. Unfortunately, that's highlighted some of our parking challenges. It's often impacted by non-users, and it affects, obviously, access for our participants. Parking is at a premium, so staff are starting to receive complaints that there isn't available parking. A lot of our participants, or some of them, do have mobility issues or disabilities, so not having easy parking is perceived as a barrier and sometimes prohibits them from accessing the building. There is signage posted, as you can see here in the image, stating that it is for senior center parking only. Staff did consult with legal and risk management, as well as the police department for next steps for enforcement. This existing signage does say that we will tow at the owner's expense. However, towing is time and cost prohibitive for the city. So, our proposed solution. As an alternative, it is recommended that staff make a resolution to amend existing parking signage to limit the hours. This is similar to the nearby Corona Public Library, and this is the sign that they have posted at their facility. It states a 2-hour limit, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So senior staff is recommending to mirror this signage and impose a 2-hour parking limit for the senior center parking, in hopes that it'll make parking more abundant for our participants. We don't anticipate that this change would impact our day-to-day programming. Should a patron choose to stay longer, we can provide them with like a temporary parking pass. So that brings us back to our ask. We simply request feedback before we take this item to council. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. I definitely have some questions, as I'm sure my colleagues do. Mr. Munoz?
Thank you so much for your report. I read through this today and over the weekend, and a couple questions popped to mind. I think one, the addition of a 2-hour limit sign would be pretty good. But I'm wondering, too, if we had parking prior to the night there, and it's been ineffective, I guess. Is that right? It hasn't worked too well, but this says senior parking only?
The signage as it is difficult to enforce.
Why is that?
Because towing, towing can be cost and time prohibitive for police.
I know that I live in an association, and my son was parked in front of our garage for maybe an hour, which is illegal in our HOA. So he walked outside going somewhere, and his car was towed away. So I know how we felt, and the aggravation, because that was like a Friday night, and he couldn't get your car out until Monday. So he was without a car for a weekend. But I think at some point in time, we learned not to park the car in the driveway illegally. But he had the parking decal, so he was kind of halfway there. So we were mad, but the solution is don't park there. Okay, park where you're supposed to park. And so when I say that, though, I think at some point in time, as adults, we need to learn to park legally. It's like driving legally also. You get a ticket. Yeah, we don't like to give tickets or receive tickets, but if you do get them, you have to pay for the ticket. And there's a learning process there, too. So in the same idea here is at some point in time, if a sign doesn't work that says 2-hour max, and before that you weren't really willing to enforce that by the police activity, and then thirdly, if you have, part of the solution is to have staff give warnings, is that going to be effective? Are they going to keep a notebook saying, I met with Mr. So-and-so, license number 10-7, and take a picture of the car? Is that going to work? I think what's going to happen is that that person might get mad at the staff person, and it just gets into an altercation of some kind that's preventable by having something done prior to that by a towing service. Am I happy with towing? No. I've had my car towed before, too, when I was 21. Did I like it? No. And the price is horrific. It costs my son about $300 to get his car out of the compound. But we learned a lesson from that. So my take on that is that we need to be careful with having staff to issue warnings. Is that a paper warning? Is it on a window? Or is that a verbal thing? A verbal will get people in contact that shouldn't be in contact with people.
Commissioner Munoz, if I may, by implementing the resolution to put the 2-hour time limit, what it does is give us kind of an interim measure between staff warnings, which we've already done and they have not worked, and towing. So the 2-hour time limit would then allow PD to come out and issue citations. And we've utilized this method over at the library, and it's actually been very effective to get people to stop parking. Usually, they only need one citation, and then they learn and then go park somewhere else. So this is why it was recommended to follow this similar approach with the senior center. We don't want to get to the level of towing. It is still an option if citations don't work, but it just gives us kind of that interim measure in between the staff warning and the towing.
Well, that I like. I'm in favor of that. So that's my only questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Munoz. Vice Chair Bass?
My question was going to be, the new signage will allow for administrative citations at the staff's discretion. What does that mean? At the staff's discretion, what does that mean?
Yeah, so the senior center staff would have an opportunity to take a look. What we're finding is that people are parking early in the morning before we open, and those cars are staying there all day. So it's really easy for staff to observe who's there when they shouldn't necessarily be and mark those tires early on and then call for citations.
Gotcha.
If I can piggyback on Ms. Cowden's response too, it's not like we're necessarily looking to cite every vehicle that comes through or, make this a revenue source for the city. It's just that we know there's vehicles that are making it difficult for our patrons to access. So this gives us a means of enforcement when needed. So it's not gonna be every day we're gonna be out there issuing citations, but if we know there's a vehicle that shouldn't be there, and we've seen that a few times, we've tried issuing a warning and it's being unresponsive, it just allows us to do a simple parking citation versus towing or anything like that. We understand, the downtown is a rich community area. We have businesses, we have neighbors, but during the senior center operations, we just want to make sure that the space is accessible to the seniors.
Right, no, I appreciate that. And I, being that it's worked effectively at the library, I think that's, makes it hopeful for a solution for the senior center. And I was just wondering, for the 39 spaces that exist for the facility, do we feel like that's sufficient for the daily average participation that we have?
Currently, no. What we're seeing is an influx with our recently implemented lunch program. And so we'll have a lot of people show up kind of all at once. We serve 70 to 80 meals a day. So that right there is going to fill up the parking lot almost immediately.
Okay, got you. So maybe something to think about in the future, like we'll do this first and see what that opens up. But obviously something we'll have to circle back to at some point.
And Commissioner, I think that's something we're also really considering as we go into the activation of the new City Park facility is maybe easing up some of the more active 50-plus activities and putting in that space where we can have more of the robust physical activity classes where we have large groups, and then have the traditional senior center be a little bit more of the intimate setting where the parking space is more appropriate to the size of the groups and activities that meet there.
And I just want to add to that too, we do offer dial-a-ride service to the senior center as well. So for senior citizens who want to get public transportation, they have dial-a-ride available to them, and that's one of the regular stops on the dial-a-ride service. So that helps alleviate the number of cars that we need to provide space for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bass. Just kind of dovetailing into that dial-a-ride note, what qualifications are there to be eligible for dial-a-ride?
So it is available for senior citizens, I believe 55 and over, I'd have to double check that, and disabled residents.
Okay. What is the parking situation around there in terms of street parking, generally speaking? Like what's available, and obviously it's probably being used, which is why they're overflowing into the lot.
Yeah, the parking is limited. They're surrounding multifamily dwellings. And then, of course, across the street is the hospital, and there are businesses to the east there. So,
Do we have an idea, just based on anecdotal observation, what type of, what kind of use is causing the long-term parking in the lot? Is it nearby residents, do we think? Do we think it's folks patronizing other businesses, employees of other businesses? Do we have any sort of thought on that?
I think it's a mix. We're close to the hospital, and right across the street is the conference center for the hospital. And so it might be that they aren't even necessarily regular employees. It's people, attending a conference.
Okay. Why 2 hours? And the reason I ask that is, does that cover the, kind of the outer typical use of the seniors themselves? Because the last thing I'd want to do is, add an extra burden to the people who are actually there to use the space, and have them inconvenienced because, they use the center for longer than 2 hours. And I know we've got to wait for them to get like a temporary pass or whatever, and ultimately the staff there probably knows who's parked there, and generally speaking, but why 2 hours instead of 3, 4?
The initial discussion with legal was sort of to bring us in line with the neighboring building at the library. Currently, they have the 2-hour parking, and we were looking for some consistency in that specific area.
Okay. And
Chair Olson, I'm sorry, just one addition to that. We are providing an option for passes. So if anyone plans to stay at the senior center longer than 2 hours, they can just go up front, request a pass, and put it in their windshield, and then that would provide them additional time to be able to park there.
yeah, just go there, go back to the car.
It's an extra step, yes.
It'd be cool if we could just, my license plate is and whatever. Maybe we could do that too. Hey, my license plate is so-and-so, leave me alone. You mentioned that towing is a cost of the city, and that's kind of the first I heard. I thought it was, the tow people love to do that because that's where they generate their revenue. Is there a cost to the city to do towing?
It requires staff time and resources.
Okay, gotcha. And what is the cost of a parking ticket these days in the city? Do we know?
The citation is $50
50?
per.
Gotcha. And, if I'm understanding correctly, we're kind of thinking this is a escalating step, right? And if we need to go farther in the future, that would be another thing to consider. Okay. Okay. So I will ask my colleagues if there is a consensus to support the staff recommendation to forward this as written to the city council. If you have any other, thoughts or amendments that you'd like to.
I make a motion to support this, A and B on the list.
So this isn't a vote, right? It is a vote? It is a vote. Oh, fantastic. Great. Well, let's vote then. So I do have a second.
Are we going to second it?
I'll second.
Okay, take a vote.
Chair Olson, your vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item passes.
And Chair Olson, I just want to make one correction on dial-a-ride. I said 55 and over. I just got confirmation it's 60 and over for senior
60 and over.
citizens. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So I still qualify?
Barely. Just eking in there. All right, that takes us to item number 5, the Urban Forest Management Update. I always look forward to this with a report from Mr. Cortez.
Thank you, Commission. Yeah, so I do have an update for you on our urban forest program, so I'm going to jump right into it here. So the ask this evening is that the Parks and Recreation Commission support the following changes and updates to the Urban Forest Management Plan. We're gonna review 3 things that I'm gonna share with you guys. One's gonna be our residential pay program, which gives residents some options on some pruning options. And also, we're gonna go over the process for residentials to appeal a newly planted parkway tree in front of their house. And also the process for protecting native trees throughout open space and common areas that are not private property trees. So we're gonna go through that in just a moment. So first, just a little bit of program background. We started this kind of really got into the nuts and bolts of the urban forest in 2021. Before, a lot of our practices for the urban forest were very subjective, and they were, pretty much service request driven. Unless you called to have your tree trimmed, we weren't really doing a whole lot of proactive work towards the urban forest. And in 2021, we really kind of got into looking at the urban forest as a whole, how many vacant sites we had, pruning, standards, best practices, and the health of the overall health of the urban forest. Some of the benefits is that by having this management plan, kind of helps us take an objective approach to the forest as a whole. Like I mentioned, make sure that it also helps us make sure that we have a healthy urban forest. That way we kind of know what we have. We have a full database now that has all of our trees in there. It shows all the history on the trees, the type of tree, the size of the tree, has a picture of it. So we're able to really manage what we have out there. Some of the goals of this plan is that we replace all our vacant sites, which is 15,000 trees over 5 years, and we are just about to complete our 2nd year here and transition into our 3rd year as we approach July 1st. So we're well on our way with doing that, and we'll also be beginning our 3rd year of the 5-year grid pruning cycle, which allows all our trees to be touched every 5 years, trimmed and pruned. It also allows us to trim all our palm trees annually. So after July 1st, we will be hitting all of our palm trees that are starting to seed right now. So it's a great time to get out there and get those palm trees cleaned up. And we have an annual investment of about $1.6 million just in the general fund for the urban forest. Some other program highlights is we are a Tree City USA. This is a prestigious recognition to agencies around the area that meet the requirements monetarily and the way they maintain and prune their trees. There are certain criteria that you have to meet in order to be able to be a Tree City USA, and we are definitely proud to be one. So we will continue that tradition. We also were awarded the Helen Putnam Award at the California League of Cities this past year for the investment that we've been doing to urban forests, as well as a community engagement. Just basically the way we've been managing our urban forest going forward has been recognized, and we were really proud to go up there and receive that award. We also applied for a USDA urban forest grant, which allowed us to plant trees in underserved areas that also included a high heat index. So areas where trees were missing, and that were areas that were kind of underserved and didn't have a lot of love. We're going to go in there and plant some trees. We're actually in the process of right now creating that scope of work and filling out all the grant paperwork ahead of bidding this project out. But this will be a great project that'll target a lot of those downtown areas down in the Circle, 6th Street, Fullerton kind of areas. And we also have a really, really robust volunteer engagement. So we work with the volunteer coordinator down on Jason's side, and we put together these tree plantings, as many of you have been attended, and So we do a lot of volunteer engagement. We do, mulch giveaways, tree plantings, community cleanups. So really a great thing that we're doing out there. Kind of a snapshot of our overviews. So our first year into it, we trimmed about 16,000, a little over 16,000 trees. We actually went over a little bit on our tree planting, and they did a little over 3,000. We removed 690 trees. And just so you know, most of those trees that are removed, because there is a criteria that I want to, we're not just removing trees to remove them. They do have to meet a criteria to be removed. So that's what those represent. So either they were causing a lot of infrastructure damage, or was diseased or declining, or had a really bad structure. So those are the ones that are removed. And when they are removed, they are replaced. So we're not just leaving a vacant site. And we had some volunteers that planted about 375 trees our first year. Our second year to date, we trimmed about 13,462, and since then, that number's gone up by about 1,000 over the past couple weeks, so we're a little bit higher than that. We have hit our 3,000 mark as well, and we removed 443 trees. Again, that number we want to keep seeing go down over the course of the years, because we're getting to all those dead and diseased and declining trees. And again, we planted about 280 trees with our volunteers, so great effort so far. So the residential pay program, this is going to be new, and we wanted to present this to you guys and get your feedback on this. So again, prior to this, we were completely all service request driven, and then we went to the grid pruning cycle. However, we still were receiving requests for trimming, either people calling in and saying, hey, I want my tree trimmed, and we would share with them, you're scheduled, however many years out. We would go out and look at the tree, and if the tree was in need of like trimming, like if it was touching the ground or preventing them from getting trash service, we would trim the tree. But then we'd also get several people that just wanted their trees trimmed because they want them fully trimmed back, and we do try to provide 100% customer service, as well as they would use SeeClick Fix. So they got a little savvy and started using SeeClick Fix to make their requests. So we started seeing this increase that people were still getting service requests outside of the grid pruning cycle. So in order to kind of get this back to our scheduled grid pruning process, what we presented at the Spring Financial Workshop was that a potential solution would be to implement this residential pay program, which several other cities around us do have a program like this. Is it allows residents that want their trees trimmed multiple times, maybe yearly or a couple times per year, that they do have an option to do that. And we're not making any money on it, it's just a straight pass-through, so whatever our contractual price would be, we would allow them to do that. Now, if you do call in, and you say, hey, I want my tree trimmed, or, it's in need of service, we will still send a technician out there to look at the tree and make sure that, again, if it's just, we haven't serviced the tree in several years, and we can see that pretty much right off the bat when they call or they make a request, we can go into our database and we can look and be like, oh, this tree hasn't been trimmed in like 6 years. It probably does really truly need some trimming. And we'll go out there and we will absolutely take care of that, and we will not charge a resident. But if we do get somebody else that calls and like, we were just out there 6 months ago, and they're like, I know it's dropping leaves. Okay, that's what trees do. It's a certain time of the year. A lot of times with our repeat customers are because they don't want to deal with either the leaf litter, or they have a type of tree that may be producing some kind of fruit seasonally. They don't want to deal with that. So this kind of gives them a pathway for that. So that is something new that we are looking to implement. Also, new tree appeal process. So we've hit a lot of our major thoroughfares, and now we're getting to a lot of our vacant sites into residential areas. So as we start to plant a lot of these residential areas, we are coming across a handful of residents that do not want a new tree in their front yard. We've also planted a few trees and have come back a few weeks later to water the tree, and it's not there anymore. So, they've pulled it out themselves, and then we'll replace it and let them know, hey, you can't just pull the tree out. Like, I don't want a tree. So we do have a tree removal appeal process. If somebody wants to remove their tree, they could make a formal request, and it would be brought to the commission for you guys to review. And then if you guys felt it met the criteria for them, then it would move to city council. We'd like to mirror that with the planting process. So if somebody did not want a tree planted in front of their house, for whatever reason that may be, the tree would still get planted, but it would come before you guys to hear their appeal. They'd get a written, you guys would get a written, their written request on why they would not like to have a tree planted. You guys can review it as a body, and then from there, make the recommendation to either deny it or bring it forward to council for their final approval. So that is another avenue that we wanted to give residents, as I mentioned, we're really getting into a lot of the residential areas with our tree planting for the next couple of years. And lastly, this is a native tree protection process. So this was actually a council agenda item that was brought before us by council member Speak. And basically what was asked of us was to do some research of some other agencies that they had mentioned to us, or that he had mentioned to us. And what it does is we already have some language in our urban forest management plan that talks about large or historic trees, but it doesn't talk necessarily about native trees or trees in general that would be potentially impacted by construction or development. So this kind of goes into what that looks like. And, if there's a vacant lot and there's a tree there that is considered native, how that tree would be protected, could it be protected? And it doesn't go into private properties. It's only in public areas, so open lots, open space parks, and again, anywhere that there might be construction or development. So that's what this does. It does also, if the tree cannot be saved for whatever reason, it would refer back to, if that tree is removed, it would be replaced with, would it be replaced with that similar species, and also at the ratio of the 2-to-1. And we could also discuss with the developer or whoever we're working with on why that tree has to be removed on the size of the tree that would be replaced with. So that was another item. This was the last item that would be updated in their urban forest management plan. And again, we just wanted to bring these 3 items before you for your support and feedback. And here's just a few pictures of some of our tree programs and trimmings that we've been doing over the last couple of years. Again, it's been a super successful program, and we just wanted to provide you guys an update. And so again, the ask is to hear your feedback. And with that, we are open for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Moses. And before I open it up to the commissioners, just kind of want to understand what we're getting to. Are we going to vote on 3 separate items, or are we just going to vote on one, or just verbal recommendations?
So the motion would be to vote on all 3 unless there was an alternative motion. So if you only support 2 or 1, then we would just need somebody to make that alternative motion, and then the vote would be on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'll open it up to comments and questions from my colleagues with Mr. Munoz.
Yes, thank you. Great presentation. A question, though, is on a title change, heading change. I don't think we're looking at native trees specifically. I think we're looking at trees in general. And those 4 line items, I only see the word native, probably not correctly used in that sentence or even in the overall structure of that those 4 line items. So that'd be my only verbiage on that one there, that I think we're looking at more than native trees. Like I say, we're not looking at heteromeles or things of that nature, or an oak tree, a quercus type of tree, or
Yeah, so we were going to actually create a list of trees native to Riverside County, and that would be the tree. So, if you have a crepe myrtle or something that's not native to this area, then we would want to, it wouldn't necessarily qualify for that. So we do want to keep it to native trees.
Okay, so this is really more than just native trees. It's existing trees, is what I see. And trees that apply to impacted by construction or development is more than a native tree there.
Commissioner, if I may, so the request was from Councilmember Speak, and his request was specific to native trees, so that's why we're using that terminology. If the commission wanted to expand that definition to just include existing trees or mature trees, we can include that as part of the recommendation.
And I think we should. So. But I think overall, it's a dynamic move on our part to do these 3 things. I have no qualms with that. And if people want their trees trimmed, we lived on Brentwood Drive years ago when we first moved to Corona, and they had camphor trees in a 4-foot parkway, which was an incorrectly placed tree. And so sidewalks were uplifted, curb and gutters were uplifted, and no one took care of that tree at all. Because we couldn't touch it. We could water it, but we couldn't touch it. So in that case, I would appeal to, hey, help out. So again, probably was the wrong tree in the wrong location. But so I'm all for this particular ask, but except for the word native. Anyway, I think the prices are probably are solid because we're using those list of those things from other neighboring cities, Chino Hills, Riverside, and Redlands. And so they're all probably substantiated. I don't know how you define the word, the statement, park slope aerial. Can you?
Yeah, so those are actually our contract prices. So when a resident calls in and we look up their, if they tell us their address, we're able to look, at the trees they're discussing with them over the phone. So those are our contract prices. So those are the line items straight out of our contract with our tree vendor. So, and we'll explain to them, so you have your parkway tree, if you just want a clearance prune, that's just gonna be skirting it up. We're not getting the canopy and doing any kind of aesthetic pruning or corrective pruning. And then if you want a full pruning, if, somebody might just want it just skirted up so they can park their car or whatever. But if they want a full trim, then that would be the aesthetic prune. And then the slope is a slope aerial, means the bucket truck can reach it. But if it's a slope climb, maybe especially up in the Green River area, got a lot of trees behind homes, the LMDs or parkways. That means the crew's gonna have to go back there, hike in there, trim it, and then they gotta hike and climb, pull out all the material out. So they have to climb it physically. So that's and those are just our straight contract prices. So those are just pass-through prices.
Again, I think this is a needed service in the area. And it's not written here too, but then when the trees get to be low-hanging branches, it becomes a lawsuit waiting to happen. It can be a fire hazard, for example. A tree is not always green all year round. They could cause some young person to get hurt, eyes get poked out, for one thing. Secondly, branches could be broken. You don't see that visually from the street 80 feet away, so that could take care of that. And again, a fire hazard. We're in fire season now, so I think we need to think of those things in the future, be far-reaching. But the key thing, I guess, overall is really our contact with the people who live in the area, and that's probably more important than $239. Is that visual and face-to-face contact with a person who lives in the area, because they're always right. So, so we need to be attentive to that need. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Munoz. Vice Chair Bass?
I think that the urban forest management program is really impressive. It's the year 1 versus the year 2 overview I'm excited to see what 2024 is going to look like. I'm wondering for the 5-year grid pruning cycle, does any marketing material go out to the residents on that?
It's on our city website, and when we do our, some of our volunteer programs, we'll put our map up or we'll have a flyer. But we haven't done much more
Like
marketing.
a mass communication?
We haven't, but we can.
I'm just thinking that, to jump up $228,000 and we're barely halfway through 24, that's significant. And maybe if there's more communication so that residents are aware of where they're at, maybe they're 1 year out or, maybe they're 6 months out, that might be helpful to lessen the requests. And then that way we're not even having to get that traffic coming in of those requests. Definitely the word has been put out somewhere because that's a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe just some kind of communication or map of how that cycle looks.
Yeah, we have an interactive map where you can see, where you're, if you live in this address or whatever, this area, you can kind of see which grid you're on and you can see if you're, a year out or if you're 2 years out, so.
Okay, so it's like they could just go onto the website and they'll be able to see where they're located at and when their trees might be serviced?
Yeah, if you go under the parks website and you click on urban forest, it'll take you to a page and there's a link on there for the interactive map, and it'll also really go into the weeds of our urban forest, how much pollution runoff, how much carbon sequestration our trees remove. So there's all sorts of fun facts in there.
Okay. And then for the native trees protection process, I feel So the new trees appeal process, it seems like it's going to be similar to the removal. I don't feel too concerned about that one, but for the protection process, I'm curious a little bit more detail on how that process would work or what it would look like. Would it be like we're just going through the database and marking the trees that are the native after we get the list together, or how would that happen?
So right now we have historic trees identified in our database, but this would be native trees. So I guess an example that actually came up in the council meeting, just so you guys can kind of understand how like was spearheaded. There's a vacant lot on the corner of Citron and Taylor, and there's some large palm trees there. There's a future development that may be going in. However, there was, I want to say about a dozen large palm trees. They're Mexican fan palms, but they are relatively large, that were going to be impacted. And so the initial plans that were submitted by the developer to remove them all. And then, some of the residents around the area were like, no, they've been here forever. There's birds that nest in them. So then they ended up adjusting their plans, and I think wasn't as many. I want to say 3 or 4 had to be removed, and then the additional ones were going to be offset with new trees. That's kind of what had spearheaded some of these conversations. So it's going in and looking at native trees to Riverside County, again, in open space or future developments on lots like that, where there's a tree that may be impacted. Will the tree be protected, and how can every effort be made to protect that tree in its place? And if not, then can it be replaced at a 2-to-1 ratio, which is the already mentioned in the urban forest management plan when a tree's removed.
But I guess I'm just trying to understand, realistically, what is what would that project and that labor look like? Like, is it something simple, like we'd be able to do at not a lot of it or extra cost, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it falls under, so again, nothing that we want to, it's for our large trees. So it's for large trees that are existing. And again, taking down a large tree that's already existing, I mean, the value to replace a tree that big. So that's why the value to trees to replace them that big is just so significant that it's hard to even find a tree like that. So that's what that really does, is it protects large existing trees that are, already growing in maybe in an open space or parkway. And it just makes sure that every effort's made to try and protect them so we don't have to remove them. And if they are removed, again, we would want to replace them in a 2-to-1 ratio, because it's really difficult to find a tree that big to replace it with.
And
If that makes sense. Sorry.
Is there like a ballpark figure on how many trees that might exist in our city like that?
No, I don't think we have a list of how many. I mean, it could be on the side of it. I mean, it could be an oak tree on the side of a hill that, maybe a developer comes in and wants it to, develop, but we don't have a list of how many trees that, at least the language exists when you come across that situation, but we don't have a list of how many trees that would potentially maybe look like.
So would it be accurate to say, we don't know the scope of work that this ask would take? Because we don't know the amount of trees that exist that would qualify for this? Or is this just as they come up, then we'll?
As they come up, then we would assess that we'll work with the planning department on, or as the developer submits their stuff or somebody's doing some improvements, we would work with that
Okay.
person on a case-by-case basis and say, hey, this is a large native tree. We need to protect this in place, or can you move your driveway over, or can the building be set back, or can the sidewalk go around, whatever that may look like.
And do we have the size requirements? Is that something normal that exists?
That's going to be mentioned, so that's something that we're working on right now, is, what qualifies as a large tree. So typically it's not always just height, it's also on the diameter of the tree. So there's a breast height, and we have a circumference of the tree, so we also want to make sure that we're putting that in there. So, what does actually technically qualify as a large tree.
Thank you.
Great questions. We'll start at the beginning. So, the overviews, very, very impressive numbers. These are fiscal years, right? So ending June 30th.
What was it?
These are fiscal years? Fiscal
Yes.
years? Yeah, so we're just about to the end of year 2, right? Couple weeks?
Yeah, a couple weeks away.
Got it. This
Oh,
week.
not a
geez.
week away.
Yeah, here we are. Do we have any idea, we've planted, over, almost 6,000 trees here. What's the survival rate for 1 year, 2 years? Do we have any idea of that?
Yeah, so we actually do keep track of our mortality rates. So only because we do go back and water them. So that's so West Coast Arborists, our contractor, they warranty the trees for a year. So we go back and we're watering them. And again, in our database, we even track that. So if we just planted a tree, if it was removed, it'll say when it was removed and then what it was replaced with. If it was just a vacant site and we actually went and planted it, you'll see all the history. That this is the day they went to water it. This is the day inspected. It's watered, watered, watered. So for a year, we'll keep it watered and make sure that the tree establishes before we can let it go native or just survive off its existing irrigation system, if there's turf in the area or something. So
And 1 year is about the time it takes to establish?
give or take, yeah. And if we have to go a little bit longer, we just got a call from the school district on some, in a common area with them, and we're gonna put those trees back on watering now that it's starting to heat up a little bit. They're starting to stress a little, so we're gonna, bump some water back up there again.
Okay. The residential pay program. Couple questions about that. So I see like the Park Slope aerial, so again, the Green River area, there's a lot of LMDs,
Yeah.
Sierra del Oro area. Is there like a sphere of influence that a specific resident could, make a request for? Like, I see a tree that's, 600 feet away from my back fence line down the way. If they're willing to pay for it, cool.
I guess if it's blocking their view and they wanna, because up there in Green River, we do get some view, people, with a view request, like, the trees, when we first moved in, it was small and now it's blocking the view of the mountains. If they wanna pay for the tree, then we would definitely allow them to pay for it. If they say, I wanna trim my neighbor's tree, because I don't like my neighbor, then that's not gonna work, but, if
Yeah.
it's their tree, yeah. So,
Yeah, and that's a good question, right? If it's, where do we draw that line of, maybe it's catty corner to me, but directly behind a neighbor?
yeah, and we'll when those cases come up, we'll wanna make sure we include all parties, like if they're, tree's not behind my house, it's behind my neighbor's house, and we're gonna go talk to the neighbor and make sure everybody's on the same page before we just do the work, but, I think those are kind of few and far between. Most of the stuff we get is typically, a lot of times it's either it's blocking, if they're not up for their grid pruning, it's because they don't want, again, it's either there's some kind of fruiting issue with the type of species, or they have a pool and they don't, get a lot of pine needles or leaves in their pool, so we get a lot of that.
Okay. And there still would be, it's kind of a subjective process. There's still a criteria for, hey, this is a clear and present danger, right? We need to do something about this tree, even though it's off the grid pruning cycle. Even if it was pruned 6 months ago, something happened.
Yeah, if
It leaned or,
if something happened to it between its last service cycle and, it's out of their control and it really does truly need some work, then obviously we're just gonna take care of that, and that's not their issue, and we're glad they brought it to our attention. We'll just go and take care of it.
okay. And you say you get a lot of these requests via C-Click Fix, which is great, right? People are adopting the tool.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Do you think maybe there could be some sort of notification in C-Click Fix under that, category that, hey, if this is an out-of-cycle request, then go here instead, or?
So that's what we would plan to do. So if you guys support it and it moves forward to council and it gets adopted, once that program implements, then we, if somebody made a C-Click Fix request, when it's acknowledged by our staff, then we would let them know as soon as we can kind of look at their address and see when they're due for a trimming cycle. Then again, we will still look at the tree if it needs to be, but if it's just, we can let them know that on C-Click Fix that, hey, thank you for, submitting a request. The tree does not meet the criteria for trimming. You're scheduled to be trimmed in a year or 2 years, whatever it looks like. If you'd like your tree trimmed, and we can have like a link or information on there on how they can do that.
Okay. You mentioned there are some folks like with fruiting trees that could be almost a nuisance. Do we know what species those might be, and are we like actively avoiding them going forward?
Yeah, so we did update a lot of our planting, our approved street tree list was updated when we implemented the urban forest management plan, but there are some existing species out there like right off the bat. One of the ones that we get a lot for is fern pines, because they do drop these little like berries, and it's seasonal, but everybody hates them because there's some neighborhoods, especially over off Fullerton and Rimpaw, that just when the track went in and years and years and years ago, they thought that was the best tree ever, and now we're stuck with hundreds of them. So, but yeah, we're kind of skirting away from some of those fruiting trees, but this does allow those residents an avenue for those trees.
Okay. New trees appeal process, just kind of how many, this, so I can get an idea of scope and what this body and council could expect to see in terms of appeals.
I would, from what we've experienced so far from the trees that we've planted, I would say maybe 2 to 3 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the native trees protection process, I actually do like the word native. You know, if it's some eucalyptus that just kind of landed there willy-nilly, and like that camphor tree that you described that just kind of is there being it's a giant weed. I mean, I can see it, right? There's some giant canary palms, for instance, that aren't native, right? They're from somewhere on the other side of the planet that still may be beloved.
Yeah.
But they're not native, right? But I'm sure that would be a part of the discussion process anyway, if it's some sort of significant tree like that. How many species are we talking?
I don't have that number off the top of my head right now. That is something that I was actually discussing with Don on getting that list of what is actually native to Corona or to Riverside County. So we'd have to do a little bit of research on that as we prepare that program.
Yeah, and my only concern is, you know, kind of tying into what Vice Chair Bass mentioned in terms of the size criteria, and what's considered a tree even, right? It's like a creosote bush or something like that. We could get, I don't know, subjective rabbit holes, right? And I don't want to create undue burdens for, you know, developers, but I also do absolutely want to protect and respect the native trees that are established in.
And that's where we'd at least, in the language would be in there, if it's already an existing protected heritage tree, then that's already in the inventory, and we do have those already. If there's a nominee for another one, then that's, again, would be brought before you and the council. There's a process for that. Those would all then be updated in the management plan. But I think it will help to at least, when the cases do come up, I think having the language in there on what those species are listed, so right off the bat we'll know if it's just a weed, it's just a weed, you know. But if it's actual significant tree that is on the list and it meets the criteria for the size, height, and diameter, then okay, then, you know, we can address that particular tree on that lot.
Okay, and I guess the historic tree registry being separate, those trees don't need to be native.
Yeah, they're historic for a reason already, so they're kind of out of that.
Okay. And finally, in terms of the 2-to-1 ratio, in the case that it does need to be replaced, and I'm not totally clear on when that distinction is decided. Is that a planning commission thing? Is that who makes that decision?
So as we work with the developer and our planning department, you know, if it's just completely unfeasible it's just gonna completely hold up the project, or it's just not feasible to keep the tree, then that determination would be made that, okay, the tree, there's just not any way to either relocate it or protect it, then we would make the determination that it needs to be removed, and it would be noted in the plans that they need to replace that particular tree, or if it's several trees, at the 2-to-1 ratio.
So that would come through like the planning commission process at that point, sounds like.
We haven't,
Yeah, well, I don't know if it would go directly to Planning Commission, but it would be during the plan review process where the Planning and Development Department would help make that determination in consultation with Community Services.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it would be noted in a report somewhere to one of the commission bodies, not necessarily a deliberative action, but that, you know, that it's in a report somewhere that is noted that this happened.
Yes, it would come through during the plan review.
Okay. And is there a criteria of, you know, size of tree that's removed versus size of the tree that replaces it? You know, if it's a 300 tree that goes away and we get 2 saplings somewhere, you know, across the city.
so we haven't had many of these come up, but like the one that was on Citron Taylor, we ended up calling out for, we didn't want like 15-gallon trees, so we called out for 36-inch trees, and the developer was completely okay with that, so.
And in terms of a location that the city would deem suitable, could you give some examples of what those locations might be?
So we were looking, so again, I'll go back to that one that we dealt with. We were looking to see if we could keep them on site. So, and we actually were able to do that. Initially, we talked about, okay, what's the nearest park that they could go towards? So we ended up saying, okay, if they can't fit on your property, but anyways, we said they'd go at Lincoln Park, so, which was the closest park to the development, so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for indulging our questions. At this time, I would ask my fellow commissioners if there is a motion to recommend these 3 items to the council.
Before I make a motion, I just want to bring up one last thing, is that the program highlights. An athlete usually goes, I'm told, I'm not an athlete myself, but 10,000 hours is invested to get better at doing archery or rifle shooting or running, track and field, or shot putting. I think what we see here, 1 through 4, is what the hours you put in, our staff puts in to achieve and become a city as the Tree City USA, and to win an award, to be receiving awards. As you're showing that your athleticism there has been enhanced by your 10,000 hours you put into that. You know, so it goes back to management, it goes down to upper staff, and down to the person like me who just ties his shoes and digs holes for and have fun on Saturdays, you know. But yeah, and then the volunteering engagement, you know, I was able to share a shovel with, say I fast 5 times, with Mr. Steiner, and talk to him and laugh with him, you know, and then talk about his education and being retired, because I'm looking the same thing myself, and to learn from people. And the kids who are there, 18 years old, younger, are learning from experience that there's people out there, man or woman, that they've been there, what I'm going through. And some people have no college experience, but they worked their butt off to get to where they're at. And sometimes it takes that mentor to explain that, to share that, and not be embarrassed by that fact, and be proud of the fact that they're doing the best for the community. And look at Mr. Steiner. He's now a city council person. So he told me, you know, you can do it, but it takes 10,000 hours. So, yeah, good job, Moses. Good job. Oh, I'm sorry about that. And so with that, I'd like to make a motion that the wording here is different. It says to support the following changes to the Urban Forest Management Program. I think besides the word native, I think, you know, but we can work on that one. That the commission supports A, B, and C as written on this documentation.
Comments?
Yeah, quick question. If we make a motion to have this go forward, can we ask that this list of what we're going to consider is part of that?
Yeah, so we would have that in the staff report and the management plan when it goes to council, hopefully in August. And then we can report back to you guys at the next commission meeting on if it was completed or approved.
Okay.
Okay, so do I understand that your motion is to move forward except without the word native?
Well, I'm not using the word native, but we need to embellish it with some refine that word native to
What that means?
Right.
You know, the species and such? Is that
right, yes.
Accurate? Okay.
I'll second.
Second? Okay, great. Let's have a vote. Bring up my agenda so that my button won't work.
Chair Olson, your vote.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that motion, that item passes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to commission members' reports and comments. Commissioner Munoz, do you have any comments to close out the evening?
I do. I feel bad about talking too much, but let's see. I had a few things here. Staff is busy. They're really busy. So, and other people too are busy that really, they're on the fringes of recreation opportunities. But I think we work hand in hand together to help the people who live in Corona become one with Corona and get involved in Corona. And the more they become one with Corona, they want to, their kids are better, they have a happy time recreating and being a family here in Corona. And that's what we want, you know. So, for example, on May 11th, we had CHIPS, which is the Historical Society, had their annual vintage home tour. And luckily, Paul and I, my wife and I, we were able to tour the homes. Usually we're docents, and they're actually placed into one house for the whole day. But we had opportunity to go to each house and see how people have changed their house from what it was in the 1880s to what it is today to be more livable. But it's also fun seeing what they've done to the house and live with the historic quality of the house. It's kind of neat to see that. And then, as we know, too, the Chamber of Commerce had their May 25th march from Chamber of Commerce on the east end of town, which is across from City Park, down to here, historical City Hall, and placed their flag inside the grass area. That was pretty exciting. And it's really heart-wrenching, too, to see the stories behind each veteran that served the country. And then in June, we had our opportunity to share the shovel with Mr. Steiner and get in the dirt and it was hot that day, but it was fun. And then Heritage Park, as you may know, had their annual antique and memorabilia fair going on there. We gave away, and like I say it, we sold a lot of money with free lemonade. We had a lot of money with free lemonade. But it's important because all the money goes back to the community. And I was asking, too, myself the other day, too, about what's going to be happening here along 6th Street here between Grand and Grand, east and west. And I'm wondering if probably in 2 months we can come back to this meeting here and talk about the word placemaking and what we're doing with the word placemaking and making that a more desirable east to west 6th Street there. Because it's going to happen really from there to all the way to the freeway behind us here eventually, because it acts City Park. And so if we can look up the word placemaking and see what I'm talking about with that. And basically it says, within our future current projects, we'd like to see what we're doing along 6th Street there. I see it on Facebook in interviews, but I like to see what's happening. I believe as the commissioners, we need to know what's going on with that placemaking within the right-of-ways along a very important corridor in Corona. So if we could do that in 2 months or so, that'd be like in August sometime. I don't know if that's possible to hear what we're doing with that placemaking in that area. I can define that word better, but you can look it up. Basically, it talks about the design that capitalizes on the local community's assets, inspiration, and potential. There's a lot of potential there along that corridor there. I think that's going to be the blood that runs through our veins here along that. It's going to start there and continue to making that drive along Corona enviable to the whole community. So we need to understand that word placemaking. The end result, I guess, is to create a public spaces that improve urban vitality and promote people's health, happiness, and well-being. And the medians and the parkways are a part of that program. So I think we'd like to hear about that. It's more than the park, it's the place. So anyway, that's May and June and for the end of June. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Munoz. I always appreciate what you have to say and hearing your thoughts on things. Never have to apologize. Vice Chair Bass.
Yes, I do too, Commissioner Munoz. And because we didn't have a meeting last month, you had a lot to catch us up on, so thank you. I'm just excited for the summer festivities that are coming up and the movies in the park. I'll be over at Promenade Park, catch a few of those, so thank you for organizing that. And just to be mindful of the heat and stay hydrated, and let's have a great 4th of July. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bass. I would like to, very quickly recognize, obviously, we're shorter a couple of commissioners up here, and most recently, Commissioner Wentworth has decided to move on and pursue different things. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank Commissioner Wentworth for everything she did over the past, over 8 years? I don't even know how long. It seems like forever to me. Obviously, Commissioner Wentworth left an indelible mark on this commission and certainly taught me quite a bit, and served as an excellent model for, how to do this thing, right? So I wish her absolutely well in the future, and I know I'll certainly work hard to live up to the legacy that she's left behind. I also look forward to welcoming new commissioners. I'm hoping to see some new energy and some bright new faces and new ideas. That's exciting too. So hopefully we can look forward to welcoming some new commissioners in the near future. And I want to thank everyone here, my fellow commissioners and staff, for making this special meeting. I know that we didn't have quorum earlier this month. A couple of us were out of town, so I appreciate you making this special meeting. I know it's right in the ramp up to the busy season, so thank you very much, and thank my fellow commissioners for making this happen. And to that point, traditionally, this body remains dark in the month of July in recognition for all the effort that goes into the 4th of July activities. So do we have consensus that that's okay to reconvene in August?
Yes.
I agree.
Great. Okay, well, fantastic. Then with that, thank you for joining us at the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. We will adjourn this meeting at time. Thank you. And we will reconvene in August. I look forward to seeing everybody at the 4th of July festivities. And have a great night. Thank you.